everyone. Welcome to Babies with Knives. This afternoon, we're going to be doing a character gen and block generation for Hit the Streets, Defend the Block. I'm Alice Pang, aka Lala Twit on the boards. With me today is my co-host Brandon Powers.
Howdy, howdy.
And our good friend Nick Garber.
Hola.
Of Apogee Comics. And guiding us through today as our GM, as well as the creator of this system, is Rich Rogers.
Hey, thanks so much. I'm glad to be here.
Why don't you start us off, Rich?
All right. So if you haven't seen the previous stuff where we talk about Hit the Streets, Defend the Block, it is a street-level supers RPG, tabletop RPG inspired by Daredevil, the Netflix Marvel series like Luke Cage, as well as CW's Black Lightning and Marvel Knights comics. So what we do in this game to make characters is you walk down through a process. So you've got the Google spreadsheet up to where everybody can see it. Is that right?
Yes, I've got the map.
With name pronouns on the top, right?
No, I have
yes,
the map,
exactly.
but I can show them that as well. No problem.
Yeah, let's show them the name pronouns because we make our characters before we figure out where they live.
Sure,
I've tried it the other way around, and some folks really want to have an idea of their character before they start drawing streets.
Well, now we have it showing for people as well.
Fantastic, thank you. So the first thing that we start off with is just a quick conversation. So Nick, tell me a little bit about the kind of powers that interest you. What kind of character you're interested in playing in a street level supers game?
Agility, height and strength, flexibility, because they're fun to draw that way.
Cool. Okay, all right. And then, so Brandon, what about you? What kind of character are you interested in playing from a powers perspective, just so we have an idea there?
Well, one question I had on, as I was reading this, I was trying to come up with some interesting ideas. And first of all, like I mentioned the other day when we were talking, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle would be pretty awesome. But how you think that a person might get a ghost character into Hit the Streets?
Brandon, quick note, can you move over that way a bit? Towards the cabinet a little bit. That way, yep. Everyone else can be seen over the overlay that I'm creating, but you're the only one that couldn't. Thank you.
So that was a question that I had off the bat, was on something like that. Because I know that a big part of the game is that strong investment in the neighborhood, as well as having that day job.
Yeah, so if you're saying a ghost character, like someone who's dead, or a ghost character, a person who has ghost powers?
Someone who has expired, and because of that, has that drive.
So that one would be a little bit of a challenge. We can try it to see if it'll work, but I find that the connectivity to having a normal day job, you're going to lose out on some of the experience points that are offered at the end of every issue or session. And I think if we draw not just a drive to the neighborhood, but perhaps some personal connections to people that have lost that character, we can try to make it work. I don't, do you have any other ideas that were bouncing around in your head?
Actually, for the ghost thing, actually, I think it might be interesting if you are a ghost that you don't even think you're dead. So you might still be you might still have a job because you might be a ghost.
That was some of what I was thinking as well is a possibility. As for other ideas on a street level game, I thought that a number of different powers can be. I'm terrible at character creation. I'm wonderful at it because I always come in with a lot. I'm terrible in it because I hate picking and choosing.
It's the curse of the GM, right? It's like you usually play all the characters.
That's exactly right. And you dream about playing, and then when you sit down to play, you're like, wait, what do you mean I only get one? I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, now I know why I do the same thing, because I GM a fair map too. So both of us have the same flaw.
There you go.
And I'm trying to narrow things down for you on what I'm going to do.
Then maybe somebody who going with that same kind of ghost theme that they are manifesting ghost-like powers, and
Okay.
that's part of the duality of them.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Let's explore that, Brandon. I think that could be a really interesting character. I like the duality of like the real world mundane, but then they also have these ghost like powers that can mist out. Alice, what about you? What kind of powers were you interested in for your superpower being?
Okay, so I have a couple concepts. One is actually an elementary school teacher who regularly reads fairy tales to her students, and she ends up basically at one point starts dreaming about the fairy tales, and she wakes up with a relic beside her. And I was thinking the relic that I had in mind was a sword built of all the magical mirrors that you see throughout the different fairy tale stories. So like the magic mirror of Mirror Mirror on the Wall, and then the mirror of Narcissus, or that spawned stories after that, and just all the different mythos of mirrors and what they represented, and they all created, and that's where the sword comes from. And so she ends up becoming the guardian of this item, and she uses it to empower her neighborhood with it. That's one of them. I have like 4 others if you don't like that one.
I do like that one quite a bit, especially like the whole school teacher angle and the fanciful stories. I think that's a really interesting growth from what she does from her day to day and the things she does as a vigilante. If you like that one, Alice, let's go for it. Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
If I could jump in, Alice, I love that because in a game that I ran for Alice, there was an Alice in Wonderland character that was the people initially learned and just referred to her as the girl in the mirror because she could show up in reflections and such. And so this is where the mirror of Narcissus that she refers to is something important. And I love it that instead of the girl in the mirror, it's the girl with the mirror now.
Yeah,
and that, you're armed and dangerous.
And there's so many stories about mirrors and Mirror Mirror on the Wall and the Mirror of Narcissus, and then all sorts of cultures have mirror tales. And so what if all those different tales, the fractured pieces somehow forged this relic sword, and what kind of stuff that would manifest and what that would reflect in our everyday society and the reflection of our own souls.
Very
and the other thing, and this is to Rich, as Alice was talking about the day job, and maybe this is just my own mind and Alice's mind, is because we really like to get into the characters and such, but with the investment into the neighborhood and the importance of having a day job, I think that it gives a real importance to what do you do? Who are you outside of the suit? Which so many people, when I sit down to try and explain playing a superhero game to them, they just kind of come up with somebody with a letter on their chest that wants to punch somebody.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's a really astute observation, Brandon, and that's something that I want Hit the Streets to do a little differently. So I'm glad you picked up on that. Alice, you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and in my case, I'm a mild-mannered elementary school teacher by day.
Nice. Cool. All right. So I think we have a little bit of concepts there to start with. So if you guys want, I've already stuck in names. So columns C and D. Alice, you can start creating your character. Brandon, you'll be columns F and G. Nick, you'll be columns I and J. Now, the printable character sheets are much prettier than a spreadsheet, but this is the best way for us to create stuff. So the first thing that you do when you create your Hit the Streets character is think about who they are, what they do on a day-to-day basis, and what drives them to want to make their neighborhood better. So their birth name is an important part. And if you guys need, I can drop you a couple links to different names. Some people have problems coming up with real world names. And then your cape name is the name that you would have as a vigilante. It might be your code name, your superpower being named. People they may have given you that name. This could be what the press calls you. It may not be what you want to be called. I once had a team that were called the Scoville Scourge because the local newspaper did not did not think that they were being very heroic. Once you have that name in mind, and if name is the thing you do last, that's totally cool. That's just where we're at on the spreadsheet. As you think about your team role, this is the niche that you fill on the team. It can be the strategist. It could be the person where you're kind of the team mom or the team dad, like the glue that holds everybody together. You could be the jokester, the cut up, the con artist. It's a really wide open role or niche that you guys will each define, and it's important in the mechanics because if you're fulfilling that role in the thing that you're doing, you can get yourself an extra bonus die free of charge. You don't have to pay for it. You just do the thing that you say your character's about, and there you go. So Nick, did you have any ideas around what role your character, the flexible, strong guy or girl, might have?
Let me go back to. I was looking at that page earlier. The roles on the team. I think I scrolled too far. Okay, no, yes, no. I don't know. Let's see here. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, if you wanted to roll a 6-sided die, just to randomly determine, I've got a table up there, but there are some suggestions ones, and I've seen people come up with different rolls, but those are the ones that kind of most folks will fall into from.
Let's roll for it. I think Wild One would probably choose it, would be best for him, but let's see what the dice say. Con artist.
For me, I'm choosing striker in the team. I'm not a brick. I'm not a support, but I'd be a striker.
Okay.
The idea is that because of the concept of the mirror being a reflection of the soul, that in general I'm looking at that when she's hurting them, she is striking them by forcing them to confront their own demons and their own failures, and that is what eats away at them more than the physical pain of the weapon. That it literally engulfs their essence.
That sounds like a con artist role. Manipulator.
A little bit, or it could be if you're seeing a striker as a person who is the one that's most aggressive amongst the team, then that might be a brick. Because I always see the brick as kind of the brick.
I'm not the brick this time. I can see I can see being the manipulator by all means. I can see being the manipulator. I can write that down. Sure.
You want that one? I'll take Wild One.
Go for it. I was about to say, Nick, why don't you flip back to Wild One? It sounds good. What about you, Brandon? What were you thinking about from a team role or a niche on the team?
I was kind of thinking that the character in my images that they lost somebody. I've got homemaker as my day job, and maybe that's what was past and now needs to go out and find a job, and so will be very much a grunt drudgery kind of thing. But so I was kind of thinking that the spiritual core, the moral center, and so I think in what you've got here, that's kind of like the glue.
Yep, absolutely. That's a great descriptor for what I had in mind around calling it the glue. So that is great. The
Team
next
Mom.
piece, yes, Team Mom totally could be. The next part is the two modes that we have. So there are two different modes that you enter when you're trying to succeed at a conflict or a challenge, and they are be normal and be super. You have a 1 to go in one of the two and a 3 to go in the other. The 1 and the 3 ratings are the number of dice that you'll start with. Be normal is something that a regular everyday person could try. It could be running really fast. It could be filling out certain forms. It could be talking to someone and trying to connive them to do a particular thing. Being super is when you are obviously something more paranormal, supernatural, or superpowered. The be super is usually what you are using when you are engaging with your superpowers. This is the thing that regular person sees you do that, and there's a little bit of a wow factor there. So a 1 in one of those and a 3 in the other.
So for me, I'm thinking 1 in normal and 3 in super, because the image of the character that I have is being that she mostly deals with first or second graders all day. She doesn't get to interact with adults very much, and that degrades. I've been told by friends of mine who actually are teachers that degrades your ability to associate with people over time. And she's very mild-mannered. She keeps to herself outside of work and such. So I don't see her being great at interacting with adults. She probably doesn't have much of a dating life, stuff like that. But in the super, she feels empowered and emboldened as a superhero with her newfound power. So I would give her the 3 in that she's much more powerful there.
All right. Looks like, Nick, you're going kind of the same angle, a 1 in normal and a 3 in super.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Looks like we're all lining up in that fashion.
Yeah. Maybe
yes,
I
I
should change
can't wait.
Maybe I should change character so that I have so that I'm a 3 and therefore we have a variation.
There we go.
Well,
if that's
Nick.
what you want. Here's the thing: like a 1 die and a 3 die, it just means that more often than not, if you guys are hit with everyday mundane challenges, that things are going to get interesting for you,
Right.
because you guys aren't super great at that kind of stuff.
And also, like, I also picture her as, one of those young ladies that shortly out of college, and she's one of those women that's all alone that tends to wait till the last minute to pay her bills, and so she has 1 or 2 late bills. And so I really do see this particular character in normal life having some issues, but I do have ones that are put together. If you'd like me to go to one of those, I have one that I can bring that I can bring.
I think we could stick with this. We'll
Okay,
be
'cause I can bring
A-okay.
Gina
And I think it's
Durant.
with
She's
experience
very
points,
put together.
it's really easy to, over the course of a game or session or so, to raise that mode with experience points. So if somebody says, wow, we're really lacking in this, maybe you want to level that up.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, so the next piece is the stats. There are 6 of them. You get 2 at 3, 2 at 2, and 2 at 1. The stats, I'll do a quick overview. They are kind of broad. So you have head. I'm going to read them out, and then I'll circle back. Head, jaw, heart, hands, feet, and tools. Heads for all of your cognitive functions, which includes perception, not just thinking through things, and deduction and reason. Jaw is for charisma, talking to people, persuading folks, making arguments, intimidating people through speech. Heart is your compassion, is protecting people, fighting common criminals, connecting emotionally with people. And the heart is important because that's how you can regain some of your spark. And then hands are your strength functions, lifting, punching, grappling, and fighting with folks. Feet is for speed, movement, and dexterity, as well as agility, running and jumping. And then the last one is tools, and that's the kind of thing that covers tools, like guns, or motorcycles,
Or swords.
or cars,
Or swords.
or swords, exactly. So 1 goes into 2 of them, 2 goes into 2 others, and a 3 goes into the last.
So one thing that you just said is that reason is in mind, but you actually list reason specifically in jaw.
Do I?
Yes, and I think that's because I'm reasoning with you, and therefore you will listen to me. And that was actually something that that I was really wondering about, because of the loaded. When I think reason, I think sound logic.
Mm-hmm.
That
that's a
is
really good
well-reasoned.
point. I'll need to tweak that, because that is a little confusing. But yeah, it's specifically using reasoning with someone rather than reasoning out a thing. So that's a good point, and I think I'll tweak
It's
that.
your
So thank
diplomacy, your persuasion, your intimidate for jaw.
you. Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
social skills.
So I have a question for you, because if we do want to have spider strength or something like that, we actually want to drop a 2 into that stat, because
Exactly. That's a great question. You read ahead, because once if you want to have a super stat, then you need to choose 2 in that, and that will be one of the 2 powers that you start with.
And so my question is, what does super heart? How does that play out to you?
Okay, my audio cut out for a second. I think you're asking about super heart.
Yes, and if you can,
hear me?
talk about that. Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Like I was like, crap. Oh no. So super heart. That's a great question. I've actually had someone who said, I'm going to choose super heart. I'm like, wait. So it's a person that's incredibly compassionate. They are great at connecting with others, inspiring others, and they are really, really good at building up a gigantic pool of spark. So it almost ends up being a little bit like the plucky character that everyone pulls for, and they just happen to scrape by at the last minute because they've just got so much spark to give them dice to be successful, even though they shouldn't be. Squirrel Girl to me, is kind of the girl with super heart.
Very cool.
Alice, why don't you?
I'm going to go
Looks
to
like
my user
you've got
settings.
your
I'm not hearing
stuff.
people.
Yeah, I've already got my stuff detailed. I went with 3 head, 1 jaw, because she's, like I said, her social skills have degraded somewhat, being a loner and not great with a lot of things, and not great with dating life and whatnot. And I went with a 2 heart. She's fairly compassionate. Otherwise, why would she be an elementary school teacher? That seems kind of a bad job for her at that point if she didn't. Hands, I went with 2. Feet, I went with 1. And tools, I went with 3 because I do want to be very good with that sword on a supernatural way.
That sounds great. I see that our moral center, Brandon, is working through stuff. So, Nick, do you want to walk through your logic behind the stats that you chose?
Yes, and hopefully my dogs will be quiet on their squeak toys for a second while I get this out. With head, I went for a 1. He's a average human intelligence. He doesn't really have any superpowers there. Jaw, I gave him a 2 because he can be intimidating and he does have a little bit of the gift of gab, but it's not as powerful as his heart, which I gave a 3. That's what. Let's see here. Oh, heart. Yeah, he's got a strong heart.
Awesome.
The big one bullied the little one. That's not very heroic while we're doing a hero game, Meryl. Hands, I gave him a 2. He is fairly strong, but I really wanted to use that 3 with the agility for feet, and tools, I gave him a 1.
All right, fantastic. Now you guys have worked through all of your power, so I'll circle back to Brandon. What are the breakdowns that you have and any of the logic that you applied to Isabella?
Well, I am going to be going with heart as a superpower, just the vision that I've got for them. So I picked a 2 so I can get that jumped up to a 6 in a little bit. That was the most important. Then I started working on what am I bad at, and it seems like I'm bad at math because I have 1 too many 2s and 1 too few of 1s. So let me fix that. I've got a 1 in hands, which I definitely want because I don't see her being all that strong. And I'm going to go with a 1 in feet because by herself she's not doing, I picture her, like I said, as a homemaker. So she's not young, she's not spry. She's not going to be winning any marathons anytime soon. The other 2 that I went for was head, that she can reason things through. She's not dumb. Has dealt with life and having to be a homemaker. But for my 3s, I figured tools, that she's adept at using what she's got, limited budget, such like that, and then jaw. Nobody guilts you like a mother.
This is fantastic. I really like where you're headed with this character. Really interesting. Good. So then the next step is the fun part of creating your powers. There are 9 broad categories of powers. You get to choose 2 to start. And Brandon, you'd already said you want to choose super stat. So I changed that drop down, and your heart now will be a 6. So you can just choose super stat from the drop down. Looks like, Alice, you've chosen the categories of perception and control.
Yes.
And then what I'm going to do is those drop downs, I'll just release it from the drop down so you can kind of define that a little bit more clearly there. So you can write over those 2.
Fantastic.
Okay, if one of his powers would be like using tendrils that comes off his suit, would that fall under body mod?
Say again? I'm sorry.
Say the character has a power like Venom, where he uses tendrils that comes out of his suit to, turn into weapons, hit bad guys, things like that. Would that fall under the body modification power?
Yeah, I think so. I like that idea.
And similarly, would like being a ghost type character, would that be under the body mod? Oh, yep, like ghost form. That's
Yep.
even listed in there.
Now, here's the other thing about ghost form, because I had a recent conversation with someone, is which is more important to you, being able to move in like a ghost, or is it really more about being able to use that ghost form in different interesting ways? Because if you wanted ghost form to be a movement power, it could be that. It's just the color of it is that you kind of mist around. So
It's more the haunting paranormal approach on it is
Okay.
what I'm looking at.
Sounds really cool. All right. So I'll go ahead now that you guys have locked those in, and I'll release them from the data validation so you can type over a little bit, or we can refine those as we go. Cool. So we're just about done with the character creation part of this. The next part is your Spark. We are going to use the kind of the short rules, as either for cons or mini series, and so you get to roll 1d6, one 6-sided die, and add 3 to that. And that's your starting Spark. It's not your max. It's not like you're rolling hit points and that's the most you'll ever have. It's just where you're at right now. You can either jump over to the rolling room that we have, or you can roll an actual physical die if you like. Whatever you like.
And it's the d6 plus what?
3.
Okay.
Yeah, in the base rules, it's normally like you're running a campaign. It would be 6, but I like to start for demos and stuff with a little bit less Spark, and we'll find out why it's with like.
I bottomed out, so I got a 4. So I'll start with 4 Spark.
Oh man! Okay, that is awesome.
Okay.
And I rolled a 5 on it, so appropriately, I apparently am doing pretty well, being the heart character.
Pretty
Where do
sparky.
I put my Spark on this sheet?
It's on row 28. I already dropped it.
There
in
we
there
go.
for you.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
So should I? Do we want to run down how we see each of the powers that we were doing?
Yeah. I was going to kind of get through the very
go
end, but
for
we
it.
can circle back to it.
Go for it.
So the once you guys have Spark, it looks like you rolled 2. Nick, is that right?
I'm sorry, I rolled a 3.
Or 3. 3 plus 3. Wow, Rich's math is not good today. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I went to art school. I wouldn't know any difference.
So the experience is blank because you guys are brand newbies. So that's where you will track your XP as you get experience points. And then the bio, feel free to fill that in as you go. We've already talked a little bit about your characters and we have an idea. So now we're to the point where I'd like for everybody to kind of introduce your characters and you can talk a little bit more about your powers. Alice, did you want to lead off? I know we've already talked a little bit about your character, but we don't know her name and all that good stuff unless we're reading ahead.
Sure. I'm going to be playing Joanna Mayer. She is a first grade elementary school teacher. She is rather a recluse. She deals with children, but she doesn't deal much with the adult life. She has a bit of procrastination, still struggling with the idea of being an adult. She's in her early to mid 20s, just finished school and got this job. So she doesn't always pay her bills on time. She kind of forgets and has to worry about the, last notice kind of statements, even when she has the money for it. As mentioned earlier, I pictured that she somehow became infused while she was telling all these stories with the stories themselves. And whether that's through one of the books she was actually reading or some other, if somebody at the bookstore decided to target her, all sorts of possibilities out there, but that she started having these dreams where she was literally the main characters in these fairy tale stories, in the mythology of these stories. And she woke up one night during a particularly vivid dream at a climactic point where she needed to fight or something very, very scary and very terrifying. And with sweat dripping all over her body, and as she shot up in bed and she was moving her hands to just kind of clean herself off of the sweat and ease herself, as she moved her hands, this sword manifested in her hands and kind of just didn't want to leave. And looking at the sword, it the reflections would change and shape, and she could see people moving in the blade itself, similarly to a mirror, and she could see her past. As she started exploring it, she learned that she could see other people's past and other people's thoughts and other people's motivations and such like that. And so I took sight clairvoyance and clairaudience limited to target, meaning that I have to basically be focusing on someone with that sword for me to see it, kind of like a mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all kind of thing. And as for control,
Cool.
I took magic of the sword, because I pictured that the sword could literally summon or breathe out creatures or elements or people out of the what I see in the mirror. So if I'm dealing with somebody who, had an abusive father, and this is a bad guy that we're trying to beat, and I just let him see the reflection of his father and start letting him relive that, his father can step out of that sword and start berating him or attacking him and such like that. And so,
Wow, that's wicked. I like it.
cool. And, other powers of it would be along the way of magic, but she's still learning a lot of it. Maybe it can do blasts, other stuff. So I chose magic, but primarily it's that element of summoning into reality.
Okay, cool.
And I'm glad you like it. Thank you.
Awesome. That is good. I have a good picture of Joanna Mayer. Is that how we say the last name?
Joanna Mayer.
Okay.
Mirror Mirrors was the name I gave her.
I like it. I like it a lot. So keep in mind, when we come to the map creation, we definitely need to know where your elementary school is on the map. So let's
I already thought about that. Yes.
Awesome. Of course, we'll need a name for it. So keep those things in mind. I'll definitely be circling back around to ask that. Does Joanna have, let me assume she has to have some kind of family. Who among her family is local in the neighborhood?
I would say that she has probably an auntie or a grandmother, someone old, someone elderly, but she doesn't have much else in the way of the family. I think it also kind of goes with the fact that I'm kind of looking at dressing her a little like Little Red Riding Hood, and so grandma down the grandmother's house we go kind of thing there.
We'll stick with grandmother then. That sounds good.
Yeah,
I like that motif. Okay, good. Awesome. Thank you so much, Alice. Let's jump over to Nick. I see that you have named your character. That is really cool.
Yes. Well, this is one of the benefits of creating a comic book universe. You get to just pull from those guys.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about Bengali.
Bengali is the alter ego of Benito, aka Benny Vasquez, who is a police sketch artist for the local PD. Upon hearing the news that his biological father that disowned him's death, that he was going to inherit his multi-billion-dollar company. But on the flip side of that coin is a jealous half-brother named Jesus Vasquez, who hires a hitman to kill him, who fails miserably. I mean, it severely wounds him, and as he's crawling off into a wooded area, he hears a voice in the darkness, saying, "Come find me," and he comes across this ancient temple that looks like a combination of Mesoamerican and just all kinds of different cultures. He goes inside and finds this mask that was calling out to him to put it on, and that it promised to heal him, kind of like a Faustian deal. So he puts the mask on, and then he becomes Bengali.
Nice. So, and I see that you're using one of the characters from Apogee Comics, and
yes.
So that art is spectacular. I really like that mask. So he's kind of around the mask gives him some of his powers. That's really neat.
Yes, because the mask, which I have a physical copy of it here.
Oh my goodness, that looks awesome. Green filter on that. That is
oh yeah. Dope. The kids love it at the conventions. They always want to try it on. That's why it's all scratched up now. But yeah, the artwork was done by Jason Metcalf. He's done a lot of work for Marvel, DC, Xenoscope, things like that.
Nice.
But the mask itself is a sentient being. It's a disembodied old world before the Big Bang type demigod that was placed inside that mask. And there's actually 6 Bengali masks throughout the cosmos, but we get into that much later in the series.
All right. Neat. So we've got Benny Vasquez, who's a police sketch artist. He tell us a little bit about. He's a wild one. I see here. Walk me through the powers. You mentioned wanting some tendrils, so talk to me a little bit about the two powers that you've chosen.
Well, since he's brand new on the scene, he's just learning to discover his powers. Right now, it's mostly reactionary. The mask and the suit, which comes from the mask, is going to be mostly defensive. So it's going to use these tendrils to create somewhat bladed weapons, blunt weapons, shields, hardening his skin, which is that defensive power, almost like an armor. He does start learning to control the tendrils, being able to wrap up bad guys, pull them closer, knock their teeth in, things like that.
Nice. So defensive, and then the tendrils as a body modification. Those are really cool. So, of course, now we need to know in our neighborhood we've got a local police department. So keep that in mind when we go over to our map, which will be coming up pretty soon. Brandon, tell us a little bit about your character.
All right, so I decided on Isabella was a placeholder, and I see another place I need to correct it. Constancia is what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
So for Constancia, she was a homemaker with, a husband that had a decent job. They're an immigrant family and were raising their children in America. She, mainly relied on her husband for dealing with the outside world and focused on raising the children and making certain that the home was kept to the standards of the old world. When her daughter died, the elder of the two children, and many years the boy's senior, that the daughter would have been in high school while the boy was, still probably like under 5. And her daughter died. After that, her marriage fell apart. She really couldn't get over the death of her daughter. Her husband ended up leaving her, got custody of the young son. She developed a drinking problem, and it was during the drinking that she began to manifest these powers and of being like a ghost. And she'll see the ghost at times separate from her, that it's there floating, and she believes that it's the spirit of her daughter. She's begun to manifest these superpowers and has basically sworn to, revenge her daughter upon the community, build things up so that other children are safe here, but definitely, take it out on those that were responsible for her daughter's death.
A little revenge plot. I like that a lot. That's pretty great. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about her powers. You've already talked about wanting kind of a ghost form. We've got that for sure. And then super heart. So talk to me a little bit about the super heart. What were you seeing with that? Is it that she's so compassionate, or is there something else driving her?
She is a very compassionate, that she wants to see the better place for this community, a better world, basically, going forward. And so as Constancia, she has a great deal of heart, a great deal that she puts into the community. She has, at this point, is getting her alimony payments, and has just kind of probably a drudgery, maybe like a fast food restaurant or something like that, laundromat, some hard work that is not very rewarding, unfortunately, and isn't using the knowledge that she's gained from years of being a homemaker. And so part of the story is that she has a lot to give, that she doesn't have a lot of self-value at this point, because all of it is tied up with the children and that feeling of failure. And that super heart, I was just really seeing that character that's kind of torn between this revenge as well as this building of a better world.
So I have a question. Like, what?
I love your questions.
What ethnicity do you see her as? With the last name, I was kind of questioning because
that is a Spanish last name.
Okay.
It's a Spanish first name too.
Yeah,
Yep.
it is.
Yep. Cool.
I just wanted to double check that before I pitched.
Constancia.
Constancia Amor.
Do you
Still
have
alive.
a superhero name yet?
I'm tossing around different adjectives for ghost or phantasm, that kind of thing. I have not come across one that tells me that is what I should be.
Wait, she's suffering from the death of a child, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
And
was
then the husband left her.
yeah, I
Yeah.
La
was
Llorana
actually
or La Llorena.
yeah, I was actually
what's that
thinking.
mean?
It is part of Mexican folklore, and it is some scary, wicked shit. So I think if anybody that was familiar with the culture or that lore, it would drive fear into the hearts of the villains and ruffians in the neighborhood.
And
I'm
that
sorry,
was
Allison. I'm going to cut you off.
oh, no problem. Actually, that was actually the exact name that I was going to suggest. So it is not. It's spelled, by the way, Lallorona. La
Go ahead and write
Llorona.
it.
Oh, it's way
Sure.
fast. Okay. Lallor. This
I'll
is
type
new.
it
I'm
out.
learning this. This is
Because
super exciting. I've got it. I found it.
Where I
good.
live, that is a big deal.
I actually was very familiar with that same folklore. There are a lot of stories about that character, and so I
Yeah,
was
the
thinking that would be
Weeping
cool.
Woman. That is pretty dope.
Um,
That is
Weeping
cool.
Woman,
Thank you both.
Weeping Witch. Oh yeah,
the
she's
one thing I would say about her, I was actually going to give you a twist on that because I actually already have her statted out as a villain in something I was going to run. Because the folklore for her is pretty dark, and usually she works as better as a villain, but a variation of her, there is a cultural variation of her that translates to mommy dearest, and so I was thinking you could also play something off of that and therefore be a little less dark, because La Lorena is she's got some potential for being a supervillain.
Well, it's not really a name that she's given herself, like Rich
There
was
we
talking
go.
about.
I love
It's
it.
a name that others have put upon her because
then she's
going
like
out initially, she doesn't. That's not a concern to name this thing because it's her child.
Right.
Is
So
what she's manifesting in her mind, and so then the stories begin to spread,
then that name
and
does
so this
work
actually
by all
works
means.
awesome.
But that
That
was
is so cool.
that name
like to
does work.
see the criminals getting beat down, and then they're like, La Llorana.
Yeah, by all
And
means.
it just-
Because Daredevil, the devil. Oh my gosh, the devil of the devil of Hell's Kitchen. So yeah, I can totally see that. Because I was actually thinking, because if she was to name herself a variation of that I forget where it's from, but it translates to mommy dearest. So we have the same myth in mind, Nick.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Bengali, nobody calls him Bengali. He calls himself Bengali, but because in the comic he works in San Diego, they call him the Demon of San Diego. Hangs around the Gaslamp district, jacking up fools.
Cool. Is that where we want this game to be set?
No,
San
we
Diego?
can set up. If you guys want to, just an imaginary place and.
Well,
yeah.
what part of are we setting this in the U.S.?
Sure, I'm good with that.
Okay. What part of the U.S. do we want it in? Just so I can kind of have an idea of.
San Diego works fine for me. By all means, I'm thinking, a place with a strong, Mexican American immigration story and all.
Oh, San Diego would be the place then.
Right?
Okay. Good.
San Diego, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas is the place.
But with California, San Diego is the closest actually large city to the border.
And out of the different areas, and out of the different areas, that's the one that I think we all have the most ability to comprehend, because we all have reference to that area. Well, 3 of us do, I know. I don't know if Rich does.
I will lean on you guys, and if you could just try your best to keep down the well actuallys of what I bring up.
I don't think I've ever been to San Diego, so.
I have. My uncles lived there. The thing about it is that I find when you're playing in a game like this, in general, I try and skip the well actuallys, and because the truth is, this is a fictional world. Yes, we're basing it off of, but look at all the movies that are based off a book. How much of that is actually in the book? So skip the well actuallys. In my world, I decided that this is where it's placed. I'm sorry that a 6 blocks off the actuality. Screw that. I don't care. I tried my best.
My comic universe has a mixture of real places and places that I've created. Phantom Hawk's city that he operates in is Crestview City. What I took was Modesto, California, and moved it to the Bay Area.
Fun. That's clever. I like that. Awesome. So we're going to say that it's San Diego. That sounds good. Well, great job, everybody, creating your superpower being. Now we're going to jump over and talk a little bit about your team. You guys as a team, we have some questions. If you go to the tab called Team Gen, which Gen is for generation.
I thought it was for Jennifer.
I know. That's why I thought maybe I should explain that. Now I'm going to rename it. Now I'm all nervous about that.
Brandon's screwing with you. Brandon's screwing with you.
Me? Never.
All right. So there are some... In the book, there are some suggestions for why your group's together, just as like a purpose, a team purpose. And I'll just quickly go over those. Secret heroes, you all live locally, have secret identities, and protect your homes. That's kind of the default state, right?
Yes.
That's the easy one. Heroes for hire is another possible purpose. There's like a guild of local businesses who pay you guys to reward you in some way. You're a little bit more mercenary. The third one is kind of like cops. You aren't officially on the police squad, but it's close, like you're almost semi-authorized vigilantes, totally off the books, which could be a connection that we have with Bengali. The next one is the tryhards or former sidekicks. These are folks that maybe feel like this is the minor leagues and they're meant for something better. The atoners are ex-villains who are trying to improve the lives of folks that they once hurt. And then the last one's probably not going to fit for any of you guys, but I'm desperate that someday I'll run Hit the Streets when they play a bunch of retirees who are too old for this crap, but somebody has to get stuff done around here. Someday,
Oh my
someday
gosh!
they'll be
I
retired.
totally should have played. I'm too old for this.
My character would have worked for that. The rest of
That's true. That's true. But anyway, that's
I had a
that's
concept
quite
that could have worked for that. I just need to age her forward like 30 years. Totally could work though.
just 30 years.
Just 30
Anyway,
years.
it's good. So, do you guys want to go with the default of like the secret heroes, or were any of the other ones really appealing to someone?
I think with Bengali, I think off the books cops, since we've got Bengali who has that cop connection.
You like that, Nick?
Yeah, that works because his cousin Denise is a detective for the San Diego PD. So.
Awesome. So
So we're kinda
it's
like
a
cops.
little Batman-y. It's not like you guys are going to have a signal that goes up in the thing, but maybe somebody that Benny works with will throw some things your way. He happens to know. Maybe you've got a connection. Maybe we'll figure out if he knows that you're Bengali or if he just knows that you know Bengali kind of deal. We'll figure that out.
Okay.
All right. So there are three of you guys here on the team. The first question I have is, who brought most of you together? Who's the person that said, let's be a team?
Speaking of which, we're generating this without Walt, but obviously we need to do something to get Walt a character, a couple pre-gen options, so he can choose what to play on the day of.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so excited that Walt's able to join us. I wasn't sure if he was actually going to be able to make it, but yes, we will.
Yeah, he just couldn't
definitely
join
say
the
some.
pre-gen in the generation session, but he will be trying his darndest to get to the game.
All right.
Get me to the game on time.
I have his phone number, and I act as his alarm clock for some games, so I will not hesitate to use that, and Nick can do the same.
Yeah, but I'm a little more gruff about it.
True. I call him and say, I'm the friendly neighborhood gnome alarm clock calling to wake you. Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, what brought us together?
I would say not me. I think that maybe the group of you kind of got me a little bit off of just being the revenge and more building towards something. And that before that, I was more, that's how I ended up with this name, is a terror on the streets.
I think I am a good person to have brought us together, because my mirror could have told me. My mirror
all right.
could have been, introducing me to these people and telling me I need to find this person or that person.
Well, with
Who
how I
calls
said
the
it,
shots?
Bengali, there's no way he would have put a team together.
No way? All right. Well, who calls the shots? Who's the person that normally makes the decisions or tries to push you guys in certain directions? This is not always the person who brought everybody together. Sometimes it's the person that brings everybody together, but another person steps to the fore. Who's the normal
I'm going to
voice of the
screw
group?
Walt on this and say Walt's character, whoever he ends up
All
with.
right. We are going
I'm gonna
with
laugh
Walt.
if he brings X Archer over.
All
Lost
right,
World
so
X
Walt's
Archer.
here. We'll just put there. Who causes the most trouble? I think the wild one, maybe? Or do you
Yeah,
guys
that's
have-
Bengali.
Yeah. All right, Bengali. And do you know each other's secret IDs, or is it code names or cape names only?
I think we would know each other's secret IDs given the nature of how I brought us together. Mirror, mirror knows all.
All right. Who can everyone rely on when chips are down?
That gonna be me?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
that's you.
so. All right. We didn't actually put your
You're
name
the mother
up
and
on
mentor.
the top there. You're the mother.
La Llorena. Llorona. There we go.
Cool. Let me get that updated there real quick. Sorry. And we're almost done with the team generation stuff. Where do you guys meet up at night before patrolling? And we'll put this on the map. But is it the thing you guys imagining that you meet up on the rooftops of some particular building?
I think rooftops of the local local town hall type, or the rooftops of the police station. But I would think that, somewhere that we have town meetings or congregate, not necessarily a church, but church would do too.
We could meet at the top of Symphony Towers.
Sure, at the top of Symphony Towers. That sounds fine.
Yeah, I'm googling stuff to enhance the world. It's the second tallest building in San Diego.
Okay,
So
that's
that
a
dictates
long
our
drive.
neighborhood.
That's a long climb. Who has a beer with whom after a successful mission? All you guys? Is there anyone who stands apart and doesn't?
I don't really drink.
Go out? You don't really drink? Okay, all right.
Well, Bengali drinks.
What about Constancia?
Sure. She doesn't see drinking as a problem yet.
Well, it's not that I see drinking as a problem. It's just that I learned that I can't hold my liquor. The last time that I went down to Baja with my friends, well, I didn't come back in such a great shape. So I've learned not to drink too much after that.
Great.
Further backstory. I love it. Said it's a further expanding the backstory. I like it.
Oh my! I'm already living my character's life in my head. This is how I do it. If I start rolling a character up, that this is how my character's living her life in my head already.
Yeah, Benny didn't used to drink until he found the mask, and then he's trying to cope with having another consciousness telling him, being in his head.
Yeah, I've got the complication of that night in Baja.
Oh, this is awesome.
And Rich is like, I can't believe I agreed to these people.
Nope, not at all. I'm just writing down that night in Baja. Oh, so I can remember that.
That's going in the story.
That will be brought back up. How do you get your missions? We mentioned it briefly, but did you want to restate that, Nick? How you kind of imagined with you guys being kind of like cops? Who is it that comes to you and maybe says, "Hey, we're having trouble with so and so. Can you get in contact with Bengali and that crazy ghost lady and the mirror sword wielding mad woman?"
Oh yeah, he's gonna get it from his cousin Denise, who's one of the lead detectives on the anti-vigilante task force, but sees the need for them in this city.
Nice. All right, we're going to skip the people in your neighborhood that in the map creation phase. Now we get to talk about your rivals. This is the last step before we circle around to do the map, and then we'll be done. So I have 6 ideas for rival team names, but if somebody has one that they like better, that is A-okay. The rival team names are the Future Legion, the Whisper Syndicate, the Quantum Rebels, the Storm Alliance, the Blitz Battalion, and the Hazard Patrol. Now, these are rivals. They don't necessarily need to be villainous or bad guys. They could just be people that compete with you, or they don't agree with you, or maybe they were friends at one point, but now they are no longer. They may even think you guys are the bad guys, because you are kind of, you work for the cops, and maybe if the cops are bad. Anyway, so Future Legion, Whisper Syndicate, Quantum Rebels, Storm Alliance, Blitz Battalion, and Hazard Patrol. Any of those tickle your fancy?
I like the Whisper Syndicate. That sounds cool.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. Whisper Syndicate we'll go with.
have no idea
now,
who they are,
I
what
have
they
a
do,
name
but
that
I like the
I think works with a lot of the characters in this group, not necessarily all.
what's
Um,
that?
Rogue Tarot.
Rogue Tarot, Tarot.
Tarot.
like a
Gives her
tarot
some of
card.
the aspects in for some of the
If
characters.
we
in this
do
group.
that, then I just want to warn you, Alice. That means that all of the Rogue Tarot, I'm going to have to go get a tarot deck and find interesting. Like we're going to have like the Seven of Cups, and do you really want to fight that? If you are okay with it, just be advised. I will definitely go with theming.
I think the theme works well with some of the aspects of some of the characters that we have specifically pitched. But I'm
Now,
good
are you
with
saying
Whisper
that
Syndicate.
you're interested in that being our name or the opposition's name?
Yeah, working on the rivals. These will be the people that you face off with from time to time.
I guess actually it works better for us than it does for them. So never mind.
Oh, okay. Never mind. All right, Whisper Syndicate it is. Man, I was already thinking like, but that's good. That's good. Whisper Syndicate are your rivals. So let's decide just a little bit about why your teams are rivals. We don't need a paragraph long backstory, but it's the thing. Are you guys competing for the same notoriety? Do you have different ideas about what this neighborhood needs? Were you former friends and now you're enemies over some kind of grudge that's being held? What do you think?
I think that I picture it kind of like Kingpin from the Daredevil TV show, where he doesn't want to be a bad guy, and these guys aren't necessarily wanting to be bad guys, but they want a better future and they see a different route, and maybe maybe they're willing to have more collateral damage because so similar motives to that particular Kingpin. I think that was a very very.
So this version
interesting-
of San Diego would be more dystopian, a falling apart, aging city
yeah.
type deal where, yeah.
Because
that works.
I liked
It also could
that
just be
both
like
he
your
and Daredevil,
neighborhood,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
both he and Daredevil wanted the same thing. They just had vastly different approaches.
Two sides of the same coin.
Yep.
I like it. Great. So this one's open to anyone who
And-
has a relationship. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dallas.
And I think going about that approach works really well with the fact that we have someone super, super compassionate, and then we have someone who's all about the children in the group. That the kind of nurturing roles going with we do care about who gets hurt, and them not caring about who gets hurt.
Okay, I like it. Who has a relationship of some kind with one of the rivals?
I vote Bengali.
Oh, God.
Is your boyfriend in the other team or girlfriend?
No.
And the
Bengali
relationship is pretty wide open, right? It could be former friends, it could be a family relationship, or it could also be a romantic relationship. But someone has a relationship of some kind with one of the rivals. Who's that?
So one thing that before Alice pitched in on her idea that I definitely saw is, since we're dealing with a place that's right on the border, and that immigration and the status that people should be might be an important thing on the and going with that name of the Whisper Syndicate is that it brought to mind of coyotes to me, and
this is interesting.
Yeah,
Alien
that works
smuggling
too.
organizations, ASOs.
and so if that were the case, if there was some tie onto that border and all that, then maybe that's me that has the connection with it.
I like that a lot. I can definitely build on that. That is really interesting. What kind of relationship do you think?
Well, my son, I was looking at being very, very young, but I guess we could age him up. And that. Go ahead, Else.
I was picturing you kind of old, like you were saying. So I would picture that you maybe have custody of the grandson, and your son is the person that is is in the Whisper Syndicate, and so the stuff that you were dealing with.
No, I have custody of nobody.
Oh, okay. Well,
basically, her life fell completely apart.
Okay. But
everything that she had built up.
I think that maybe your son would work, since you were saying you were pretty old.
If you're interested in that. If not, it could be a connection to your form.
It can be because he has a different view of why his sister died and what's the best going forward for people. And so that works, is a pretty cool thing to me.
All right, there we go. That is Constantia's son. and he probably has no idea that
Yeah.
you are.
I am the drunk mother that could not take care of him, and his dad got custody and such like that.
Man, it's nice. You got a little bit of revenge. You got a little bit of redemption story going on. Constacia, it's good. It's good. So who is the? Oh, we'll save that for later. We'll figure that out and play. But this is important. What do your rivals, the Whisper Syndicate, what do they have that you guys don't?
I had an idea. Like, as soon as you said Whisper Syndicate, and then he brought up immigration, it is probably a few individuals that are rich, high in influence, probably real estate developers or business tycoons, and they're exploiting the strife of the immigrant coming across for cheap labor and things like that. Promises of, fame and not fame and fortune, but wealth and prosperity.
The American dream.
The American
Yeah,
dream.
right.
White picket fence.
Yeah, but all they do is just exploit them. When they die, they just bury them underneath the building or whatever. So I would say money and influence.
Okay, I like that. What weakness of the rivals, what weakness of theirs do you take advantage of?
Their greed. I have no idea how we're going to do that, but I guess we'd figure that out in gameplay.
Well, that's kind of double dipping on that same money
I
issue
don't think
as to what they have and what we take advantage of.
I think we take advantage of their lack of bonds, that they don't have the same level of loyalty that we do, and so we take advantage of their lack of loyalty. We can play them off against each other. We can spin their demons against each other and such like that.
Well,
that's interesting.
With the word demons and the way that we all are is like Nick and I are both dealing with kind of this dual entity. Alice, you have a sword that's like the Penance Stare.
Yeah.
Which I was totally thinking of. I was going to ask about. Well, I thought about the ghost power, and I was thinking more of a ghost rider like Penance Stare. And then you said that, I'm like, nope, I'm not going to bring that up. That like
I too thought of a Penance Stare for Bengali. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it.
That like literally that we are what goes bump in the night, and that they aren't really prepared to deal with that paranormal aspect of the world. If they're about money and building their better future based on their greed, that they aren't really ready to deal with what has gone before. Alice has her stories. Nick has this mask that there's 7 of in the cosmos. And, I am a manifestation of my dead daughter's
actually,
power.
there's only 6 of them.
Okay.
I know. It was done as a joke. I don't do the actuallys.
All right. This is
speaking of actuallys, one time a friend of mine and I were in line at Safeway, and we're waiting and it's taking so long. And then the next register opens, and there's one guy ahead of us. He's got like 20 items on the belt, and we don't have anything. And so the guy goes, "Oh, we could take you over here." And he's like, "Actually, I'm next," and like grabs his stuff and starts running for it as fast as he can. It was kind of mind-blowing, the scene. It's a cartoon in our heads after that.
Yeah, it's been a fun cartoon.
Just give up the win on that one, buddy.
All right, so are we sticking with the lack of loyalty, or Brandon, did you have another weakness of the Whisper Syndicate that you found that you wanted to throw out there for discussion?
Like I was saying, the fear of the past, that paranormal aspect, that while they might be more of an Avengers, we're like the Darkhold Redeemers or something like that, the Midnight Suns of the Marvel Universe. And that they're just not prepared to deal with that paranormal. I don't know what the other two around here think of that.
No, that works. While they're dealing with earthly things like possessions and greed, we can play on folklore.
Sounds good. All right, we have gotten to the point where we're going to do map creation, and then we're out. Friends, are you guys good? Good for time? You guys
doing wonderful.
Break?
We're good.
No,
Does it need a break or anything? Or are we good?
I'm good.
If we take a break to make another set of characters, I'm down for that. But that's,
All right, let me drop the link in case you guys need it, so we can make some edits to this map. And Alice, I'll pause. Do you need anything before we move on to the Hit the Streets map?
Nope, we're good.
All right, fantastic.
In the future, I might change the OBS scenes a bit. We're still tweaking, getting used to, and learning, because right now I have basically the browser window in between the 4 frames of ours. But in the future,
I think that's a good idea. Since we got to bounce around to different tabs, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and so, but in the future, I may change things a little bit too, so that it's not, so that it's a separate window. We'll see.
Okay. I am going to be working from left to right in the character keeper, which is by first name. I've already drawn Main Street, as you can see. Let me quickly, in case you guys aren't familiar with Google Drawing, what you're going to be doing is drawing a street, and this is the street that your character lives on. It will need to cross Main Street. You can either draw a line, or if you want to freehand it, it's with Scribble, but a reminder, you're doing it with a mouse, so it's going to look terrible. Your neighborhood is going to look terrible. Just be okay with it. Just accept it. It's okay. All we want is something that will inspire us. It does not need to be the perfect neighborhood. So Alice, you get to go first. Please draw a street, and we'll need to name it. I've got some street name suggestions on the left-hand side if you need some ideas. And then
Birch Street.
you'll need to... Birch Street?
Yes, Birch.
I like it.
This is where
Cool.
my elementary school is going to be on, is Birch.
we're placing our homes.
Oh, placing our home.
Yeah,
sure.
we do homes first.
Sure, then Birch Street is my home.
Okay. If you can grab one of the little building shapes and just drop in where your home is. Is this a house? Is this an apartment?
I would think that it's an apartment.
Okay, cool. Like, is it one of those quad apartments, or is it like a big apartment building with, 100 residents? What do you think?
I was thinking of something like that. And
Nice. All right, cool. Let's just move it
So
over
it's
here a little
it's a
bit.
decent complex with a courtyard and probably 20 or so housing units. Yeah, 20 or so.
I just stuck a pool in there. I gave you an upgrade.
Awesome.
Oh,
There's even a
wow.
pool. 20 units and a pool.
That's
That
where we're
pool.
hanging out. Forget beers. We're going swimming.
That's where the dead bodies are. No, good. So think about what your apartment complex is named, and I'm going to jump over to Brandon. Let's draw where Constantia lives.
Sure, trying to find where. There it is. Grab that.
So make yourself a new street, and then drop a building onto it, name that street, and tell us about where you live.
Giving us a little bit of a curved street there.
I like it.
And we're going to call that Sobre Mesa.
Nice.
For me, I'm going to live on the far end of this. Since Alice's place is a little bit nice, it's got a pool. I'm going to live in the dump, apartments. If you remember the Simpsons episode where Milhouse's parents get broken up, yeah, that's the apartment complex basically that I'm living in.
Did I spell that right? I just guessed it's Sobre Mesa.
It is actually one word in Spanish. I just looked up cool words in Spanish. And Sobre Mesa is that moment after eating a meal when the food is gone, but the conversation is still flowing at the table.
Wow, what a cool term.
Right? And I actually, that's the first thing that's there. And, with a story, you can almost attach anything when you see something cool. But, the food is gone, her daughter is gone, but the conversation is still going about that. And so I thought that was kind of a fitting thing for it.
Nice theming, Brandon. I like it. All right, so where are you going to stick that house?
I'm going to be in the bottom right here, basically, to get as far away from Birch Street and Alice's nice pool as I can.
Okay.
And this is going to be, crack dealers, all sorts of bad stuff.
So Main Street is the cross where wrong side of the wrong side of the tracks, because it's always that there's that one major street that on one side it's nice and then you cross that same street and it's bad, and so Main Street is our wrong side of the tracks cross, right?
There you go.
Yeah. Are you north side or you south side? And if you're south, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah. And but like I say, this is where the crack dealers or the people listening to modern music, that's where they're hanging out.
Or people listening to modern.
One of those
Awesome.
beatniks.
Just drop one of those building shapes over there, so we've got a idea of where she's at, and then we'll bounce over to Nick. Nick, draw us a street.
All right, here we go. Okay, so north side of the street is the wrong side of the tracks.
No, it's the other way around. South side
Oh,
is
south
the wrong
side.
side of the tracks.
Okay, let's live on the south side then. How do I draw?
Oh, if you want to draw the select lines, if you do the drop down there as a scribble, and that's how you can draw.
Okay, select line. Let's do. Let's just do this. Here we go.
I came up with a complex name. I think you saw that.
North Park, I like it.
All
It's so
right.
much nicer than where Constantia lived.
I actually know someone who lived in a complex called North Park, and it was actually a very nice place. So
Nice.
What am I going to name this thing?
had its own in-complex gym and everything.
Ooh.
How do I no, there it is.
East Sorich Way, fantastic. Now, the Heights. So, are you also in an apartment, Brandon? Constantia,
yeah.
is she also? Okay. Cool.
She's in one of those run-down apartment buildings.
Yeah, the crappy ones.
There was a show. I don't know how long it went, but I only watched the first episode. But I think it was like a Golden Boy or something like that with Shy McBride. And, during the first episode, like the residents are getting ready to riot, and he's like, "I've been places like this. I know what it's like." And he goes on this long stream, and it always smells like fish, and that's where I live.
That sounds kind of terrible. Oh, it looks like Benny's living in a pretty big place. Nice.
Yeah, it's run down and crappy though. It's just tall.
Wait, how is the school teacher living in the nicest place of the three of us? That doesn't make sense.
I think we should explore that and play and try to figure out how did you get
Yeah,
She
I
sleeps around.
no. I think
That's what people
maybe
say about you.
grandma's money, maybe. Grandma's money. Maybe I live
Maybe
with
it's
my
like a
grandmother.
narrow situation on Arrow. It's like the Narrows used to be nice, and then
Ooh, that is kind of cool. The idea you used to live with your grandmother. I like that connection. If you're good with it, and it also goes with the Red Riding Hood
Yep,
vibe.
sure.
oh yeah,
Live with
And I think maybe your grandmother, like, there's maybe it's rent controlled.
Mhm.
Like this particular apartment's rent controlled. She's been here since the like
Sliced bread.
mid-70s. Yeah,
Yep,
since-
exactly.
and I love it. And maybe it's kind of gentrified a little bit. And like
Yeah.
every other place around you are really nice. Maybe they have a little bit more attention from the super, but
That
she
works a
lives
lot
there.
better because I have friends who, yeah, the school teaching does not pay.
No. Good. So we've done our first round. Let's circle back around to Alice, and now let's figure out where your elementary school is.
Sure.
If you need to draw a new street, that's totally cool.
Let's put that as 7th Avenue. So it's one of those cities where you have the avenues interspersed with other streets. So this will be 7th
Okay.
Ave.
I like it. Awesome. I'll work on the name. What are you calling this school, and where's it at?
We'll go with Sunnybray. Shush, Brandon. I just felt like it, okay? We'll go with Sunnybray.
How do you spell Sunnybray?
Sunnnybrae.
Brae. Okay. All right, go ahead and stick where that's at. No.
Sure.
Royal Oaks Plaza. Boy, that is a nice name for a crappy apartment.
Yeah. It just, I thought it should have a lot nicer name than it is.
That's perfect. I love those. Cool. So while you're placing that, I did not put the name Sunnybray, so if you can
Sure.
sneak that in, that would be fantastic.
I will happily
very
do
helpful. Thank you. So let's ask Brandon, do you want to stick in like a landmark defining place or a gathering hangout or perhaps a public landmark of some kind?
There's two other places that are naturally important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And one would basically be where the daughter was killed, and then the other would be the graveyard. But if we're looking for a hangout and talking about me being in a career that's not really rewarding, maybe waitressing
Okay.
is where she is at this point, at kind of a dive diner.
Love it.
And
Love it.
so a Hispanic greasy spoon, El Gruense. And so let's go ahead and get this. Oh, that's how that one works. Cancel out.
You ready to bash things in yet, Nick?
Yeah.
Ready to go break every building we just did?
Yeah.
And
Do a little rough redecorating, yeah.
All right. While Brandon's working on that, Nick, did you want to stick in where our police department is? Is that on Main Street or is it on its own street?
It would be on Main Street.
All right, cool.
That way it can cover both, let's see, pretty big building here, so we'll just put it on the south side.
So, Brandon, you decided that we seem to live on some sort of hillside in some regard because the
other people were going with straight streets. I refuse to join that club then.
Okay. So I would
Love
say
And yes, Alice, you're on the highlands. Nick and I are down in the lowlands
I would
where
say
down in the
all the trash
slums.
washes.
yeah, I would say that we're probably on a bit of a hill, Rich, is my pitch. Because the way that the terrain is being built, it seems it registers a lot of places that have that hillside, like San Francisco, or a lot of other places where the roads aren't fully straight.
Yep. I totally get that. That is fantastic.
Well, actually,
So this crooked as a dog's hind leg street, the El Gerlinsa?
That's the diner.
Yeah, that's the diner, but like, what do you think that street's named as well?
I was going to go with Hyde, as in
H-Y.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Hyde as like a street, avenue, boulevard? What do you think?
Boulevard. No, this is more of a drive.
Hyde Drive. I like it. By the way, at a live table, just have like a big map, and there actually is a single page if you can draw that small. But doing it live at a table is really, really fun too. can kind of pass it around. Everybody has some pens that are leaning over the same big butcher block papers. It's pretty great.
Yeah, this is fun.
Cool.
I think Alice needs a park near her North Park apartments.
I agree
Absolutely.
with that. I was thinking that was what I was going to place next when given the opportunity. I was going to use the cloud shape to build a park.
Fun.
I totally wanted to do that as my building.
Good. Good. So let's see. Are there any other things that we definitely need? And again, the neighborhood is a living, breathing thing. If we need to add something, we're like, oh, we should have had X or Y, then we could just draw it right on there. Let me ask this question, Nick. When you're thinking about this particular neighborhood, and we should also maybe think of a name for the neighborhood. But when you think about this neighborhood, where do most folks work? Do they work outside of the neighborhood? Is there some kind of business section? Maybe a lot of small businesses that happen to be along Main Street? What do you think?
Let's see here. Trying to think here.
While he's thinking, I pitched Lower Eden for our neighborhood. I think that kind of gives it that contrast.
I like that.
With the name.
Yeah.
That's
with
great.
The way we're going for.
I'm good with that.
Cool.
Good name.
Lower Eden.
All right. I'll
Oh,
stick
so
it
you
out
get
for
a
Ryan.
hero point.
Thank you. I'll be sure to use it next game. When the GM tells you you get a hero point, doesn't matter what game you're playing with that GM. Next game you remember that hero point. Which in Supers means it's a competency die. So if we play that next, which I believe it is, then I get a competency die.
That's the next thing I'm running, so
Exactly. So
tomorrow night.
competency die for me.
It'll be on like Donkey Kong.
Alice, you've mentioned Supers Red. When I went to Drive Through RPG, I could find the Supers RPG, but like,
I'll
is
get
that
you a
just a
link.
nickname? One of them? Okay, I'm really curious.
Red stands for revised edition, whereas Supers Blue stood for the big. Oh gosh, I don't remember it off the top of my head. I'll have to ask Walt. I always just go with
Okay.
red. But yeah, as long as it's the latest edition, you should just find Supers. But I will get you a link later on.
Alrighty, I appreciate it. I wanted to check it out. What you guys are.
Sure.
Okay. I was super curious. All right, good. So
You
we
know,
have.
I'm always willing to run games for people, so.
Yeah, you should come play with us.
Awesome. Thank you for the invite. That's very nice.
We're
Oh
genuine
yes,
about that
Kirby
invite.
Way.
Gotta have
Kirby Way. Oh.
Kirby Way, I love it. Have you guys ever seen the Freedom City supplement for Mutants and Masterminds?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I love just kind of pouring over that map. It's so cool.
Brandon, didn't Aldo partially write that one?
I don't think so.
Oh, it wasn't Aldo? Okay.
All right, so I'm just going over our list to make sure. We need a gathering hangout of some kind, friends.
Oh, I
Someplace where you
thought
guys
that
have some beers.
El Griance,
Oh.
you know,
The
My-
Greasy Spoon. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Is that where people go have
Mexican
drinks
diner
too?
Greasy Spoon.
Okay.
Is it a bar and grill? And
Is there cervezas there or something?
Sí, muy
All right.
cervezas.
All right. All right. Good. And Nick, did you ever percolate on where do most folks work?
Well, with what we've got, I would definitely say that, you know, having something that is going to support illegals or even just, people who have come over legally but are pretty poor off.
is that where
Okay.
Lower Eden kind of resides? In that area.
So you think there's like a lot of construction that's going on? What kind of day labor do you imagine is taking place here?
Construction, I would think.
You know, I remember reading or Alexaing a raid that happened on the electronics place that it was like I guess an electronics manufactory where they found hundreds of undocumented immigrants and
Oof.
some that kind of thing. And it was this happened just a couple months ago, and it was the largest bust of a single location, I believe, a single business that had occurred. And so, something like that where you can, have a lot of people go in to a building and there's, you're not really seeing what's going on.
All right.
Construction, I think, actually plays well with the Whisper Syndicate, and their visions of greed and upgrading the neighborhood to be something better than what it is.
So, using what you're talking about, I think somewhere maybe here around the Greasy Spoon, we've got a big factory that's in maybe an industrial park.
Yeah,
and that's where a lot of people work. Does that work for you?
I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds great to me.
All right. Well, let's just we'll just grab a little thing there, and we'll make that a lot big in it. All right, and there we go. We'll just say that's. We'll stick it farther away. There
Why don't we get a blacktop up there too somewhere then?
A blacktop. What is that?
A blacktop is a concrete. It's a concrete park. It's where there's basketball courts and little sports courts that might not be the most upper class, but it's called a blacktop is the slang for it in a lot of places. Some schools even have blacktops because it's just what they call a concrete park, a concrete playground.
Okay,
that
cool.
could be where my daughter was gunned down.
Yeah, and that's very common in a lot of places. So we should definitely have a blacktop.
We'll stick that in there. That sounds great. I think we've just about got enough to call it done for now, so we can jump in and play next time. Anything that you guys feel like we're missing once we get that blacktop in there?
Mind if I drop a nice park near North Park?
You certainly should. I mean, we called it North Park for a reason. Do that. That sounds great.
We should move the word hillside.
Yeah, that was just a note. That's perfectly fine with that one too.
No.
Anonymous Skunk. I love this park's name. That's what Alice is on this document to me.
I know. I've been watching it the whole. Check it out. It's great.
What they come up with is hilarious, by all means.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Should we make that green for our park? Green?
Yep, green for park. And I accidentally dropped it. There it is again.
Good deal. I like it. All right, so we have a park. We have most people work. We should probably come up with a name for the factory, but we can save that for later. It's a big, I'm kind of imagining almost like a Foxconn type deal, right? Where it's just gigantic and people work there for 14-hour shifts, all that good stuff. I mean, I wouldn't quite call it an Amazon warehouse, but there's also something that's buzzing around in my brain. We've got the elementary school. We've got the Heights in North Park, Royal Oaks Plaza, the Precinct 5, and the Greasy Spoon. Oh, yeah, Ditko Industrial Complex. Oh,
yeah, careful. We shouldn't call it the Amazon one because, we might get sued for slander, so we should name it something
exactly.
else.
Yeah, like Slamazon.
Yeah.
Is that
I
what
was
it's
thinking I was
called?
inspired by. Yeah, Ditko Industrial Complex. Is that's hilarious. Good. Anything, just last call before we start to wrap up here. Anything else you guys feel like we haven't stuck on the map that you absolutely need the first moment that we started?
Nope.
It doesn't need to be on the map, but like I said, someplace where the daughter is, buried, interred. Or
yeah, that
like
blacktop.
that.
We talked about that, but we hadn't stuck that.
Oh,
on.
that's where she died. But yeah.
Oh, wait.
Cemetery. Is that what
Where
you're
she's
talking
buried.
about, Brandon?
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh man, now
I
I'm going to
won't.
create a little
I'm
gravestone.
going to say that in a neighborhood like this, we probably don't have a cemetery. Maybe she was cremated. and her ashes are scattered in Amble Park, or maybe on the blacktop is where her ashes
I
were
don't
scattered.
know. I would read it like maybe there's a church and there's like a little baby cemetery at the back of it. I mean, I'm not.
Actually, yeah, a church is what I think that maybe we're lacking.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm
I
looking
agree
for
with
some
that.
place that one place for me is dark and the other place is lighter. That where she died is a very dark place to me, but where she and that could be where her spirit is to me in the church, whether she's buried there or not, and that can be kind of a source of that hope.
I like it. I'm just gonna cheat and do this. Don't worry, I'll resize it. I know it comes in giant, but I'll just stick that church. Is it on Main Street? Do you think the church is on Main Street?
Yeah.
Kind of put it not far from the police department, or do you think it's down?
I'd say like right at Birch and Main, north side.
Birch and Main, north side. I'll shrink that down a little.
Across the street from the precinct.
When you get out of jail, you better go find redemption.
Nice. Okay, so we got our church, and we'll need to come up with a nice, cool name for that eventually. Need to name our church. I'll just say church for name that sucker. It's dramatically appropriate.
Our Holy Lady.
There we go. We're already done. Good. And then at the little cemetery, Our Holy Lady is where, of course, we will need to know her name at some point, Brandon. So make sure and try to think of what the sister's or the daughter's name and the son's name as well. That'll be something. I can do the son's name if you're okay with it.
I'm totally okay with it.
All right. And then if you just figure out the daughter's name, we'll stick that into our little NPCs in places tab when we've got that. All right. This looks great, you guys. Good work. And so I think we are done.
Fantastic.
Before we jump off, Alice, why don't we, just some thoughts on how that went? I'd love to actually start with Nick, who is kind of a newbie at this kind of thing for a role-playing game.
Sure.
I
thought it was really simple. Not everything is dependent on the roll of the die, which is cool. And it forces teamwork right off the bat. So I think that's something that I haven't really experienced in some of the other games. It's like you're already a team, but there's no reason why you're a team or anything like that, or how you all came together. So it promotes a backstory, setting up your skill set on and off duty, so to speak, is pretty cool. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was really easy to learn. It's very user friendly for someone who's just wanting to get into it, so there was nothing overly complicated about the setup or the generation of the character.
Alice, what about you?
I enjoyed it. I think that the block creation is an interesting concept. It takes something that is existing in another variation in Apocalypse Engine, but that's not what I want to call it.
Dresden Files.
Well, Dresden Files, but also in a few other games. But Dresden Files, Fiasco actually has a similar, approach. And I always call it Apocalypse Engine, but that's not exactly what it is. I'm trying to figire out what.
Powered by the Apocalypse?
There we go. Powered by the Apocalypse. That's what I mean. Powered by the Apocalypse. There's some skins that follow that. But they're all. But this is a very different spin on that same concept and same idea, which I think is actually a nice one. I like. I think that it is it's fun for a fun, like you said, it's going to be a short campaign. And with the way that the character generation works, I definitely can see that being the case, because it doesn't have some of the elements that you need to run with a long term. But I think that it's a great way to gateway people into superhero games by all means.
I thought that it was a really fun time to come together. I mean, look at the team that we assembled. We have a first grade school teacher, kind of prim and prissy, a little
Mousy.
uptown,
Little uptown,
mousy.
little mousy.
We have a Bengali action figure now being presented to us. We have this.
Eyes, but
That is so awesome. I love that.
We have a police sketch artist who has had the key to the fortune placed in his hands, and now he has a brother that's trying to take that away and such. And then we have somebody who's just at the absolute end of her rope. And when did we start this? We started this not that long ago. It's 4:00 now. We started at 2, I think it was.
Yep.
And
it didn't take long at all.
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel how we've come together a bit, even just through just a few questions that were asked. And that, like I said, Alice kind of brought me back from being, earning that name of La Lorena. And
that was really cool. And I think as we progress playing the game, because we did stop to talk about everything about it for everyone that's listening and watching, you could probably do this easily, probably within an hour.
Yep.
Yeah, very easily.
That's been my experience when I run the game is, an hour to spin everything up. That works.
So and then not only did we get these characters put together, but then we threw together a neighborhood where we allowed each of those characters to have a part in. And, when Alice said, it looks like you're doing a hillside with your curved streets, Brandon, it was like, well, yeah, you live up on the heights, and then we're down in the gutters here, babe.
No, I think it's got a great aspect of that, and I think that you did a really good job, Rich, of doing a different spin on a mechanic that a couple of other systems have tried to introduce, but this one's definitely got its own direction that none of the others all share it a lot more with each other, I feel, because it's all about, they all share the same traits of what you're trying to generate. You past relationship, card Dresden and Spirit of 77, I've had the same feeling of we're just passing along and how I know you. There's an entirely new depth to that, and it's actually my favorite part of your system so far is the depth of this creation aspect, and it could be brought into a lot of other games.
Exactly.
Absolutely. This is a game you could run in the middle of, campaign if you wanted to. It's totally suitable for that.
So thank you so much for running us through that. And Alice, I'm sorry that I shortchanged you. Were all signing us off, and I'm like, wait!
No problem. I can cut out the previous sign out. And does anybody have anyone else want to add anything before I close out, though?
How'd we do, Rich?
You guys are great. I'm super excited to see these characters in play. You guys have created some really interesting, vibrant characters and some amazing art for one of them already. Stoked. Very stoked.
Awesome. Well, then everyone, thank you for watching Babies with Knives. Please make sure you subscribe and join us for the actual play coming soon. Bye.
Adios.
See you.